And we'll also share the recordings and also the presentations after the webinar. And with this, I will give the floor to Valerie. She will take it over. Valerie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Samson, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever that you're joining us from. My name is Valerie Awino. I'm the Global Dialogue and Regional Convening focal person. Today, we are going to have the second webinar of the Global Dialogue, the information webinar. We are going to share what the Global Dialogue is all about, the progress that we've made since the official launch, which happened about 3 weeks ago. And also moving forward, how can we make sure that the momentum around the Women Deliver 2023 conference is upbeat as we head to Kigali in July. So I will start with the introduction of what the Global Dialogue is all about. Just give me a second. Samson, could you kindly make me the co-host? Since I lost the right to share.
Okay, give me a sec.
So to start with, the Global Dialogue is the mobilization and the engagement that is currently happening in the lead up to the Women Deliver conference in Kigali. And the reason as to why we decided to have the Global Dialogue is that to give the communities the platform to be able to discuss the key thematic issues that they are facing in relation to gender equality in their respective communities, and this conversation to also find its way to Kigali and see how we are going to amplify it and also to interact with other organizations, policymakers, and activists that are working within the gender equality space to be able to address these diverse problems or the diverse concerns in regards to gender equality. In a nutshell, these are advocacy spaces whereby they can be devised or they can take the format of whichever way that the community feels it's right or feels that it relates to the people that they are targeting, using the local resources. They could use their local languages, or they could also use their own format to make sure that the dialogue with the dialogue around gender equality takes place, and they're also able to collectively come up with solutions in their own community space. So in a nutshell, that is what the Global Dialogue is all about, the mobilization and engagement that is taking place before Women Deliver conference in July. It sounds like So what are the three elements of the Global Dialogue? The Global Dialogue is anchored on three things. One is the regional convening, the community events, and the Rwandan mobilization. For the regional convening, we are working with different partners in different regions. We are working with the Victorian government in the Australian region. We are working with the Asia Pacific Resource Center for Women. We are working with the city of Bogota, the Arab Institute for Women at the Lebanese American University, covering the MENA region. And we are also working with the Ministry of Youth, Gender, and Persons with Disability, covering South Africa. And the reason as to why the regional convening partners are quite important as we head to Kigali is that we want the conversations to be taking place within the regional context. For instance, if there are gender equality issues that MENA region wants to cover, this is a great platform whereby they can come together and be able to address those issues. Again, the regional convening can take the format of, they can take any format that the organization deem fit for their specific region, and also how that conversation is captured and brought to Kigali. It's also in the discretion of the regional convening partners. Then we have the community events. These are the dedicated advocacy spaces for activists to come together and be able to talk about issues that they are facing in their respective communities regarding gender equality. Again, this can take any format that the community deem fit, that it will give them the platform to talk about the issues that affect them and also collectively come up with solutions or some of the policy windows that they'll want addressed as we head to Kigali. And of course, the last one is the Rwandan mobilization, where we are working with different Rwandan civil society organizations to be able to also tap into the potential and also into the progress that the Rwandan community has been able to make in regards to gender equality. And of course, we're also working with the UN agencies, and the Rwandan government to make sure that all the conversations that are taking place locally are also able to be discussed further during the main conference. Also to echo again is that Rwanda is going to be our host, so it's quite important for us to also highlight the progress that has been made within the country in relation to gender equality. So we have the regional convening partners, and they have made different progress in regards to what they're planning to do. So the first one, we have the Victorian government, and today we have Helen Chong, who is our representative from the Victorian government, who will be highlighting what are some of the plans that they have in that region and the scheduled events. Helen, I'll give you 2 minutes after I've presented the progress with the Asia Pacific resource, and then can come in after. The Asian Pacific resource, one of the regional convening partners, working closely with YUWA. YUWA is a Nepalese name for youth, and these are the sub-grantee. And what they're currently doing is to make sure that through the steering committee members who represent different countries within the Asia region, they have come together with specific asks or the specific thematic that they want addressed as we prepare for the main conference in July. So right now, their events are more inclined towards having virtual events whereby they envision to connect with different people within the region to be able to discuss gender equality issues. Then we have the city of Bogota, who are going to be having an in-person convening on the 28th and the 29th of June. We also have the Arab Institute for Women at the Lebanese American University. For them, they're taking a different approach, as they want to, they're bringing on board a research and communication consultant. The research consultant will be able to document on the key findings around gender equality in that region and be able to share a policy paper on that. What are the key issues that are coming up? What are the concerns that women and girls in their diversity are having specifically in that region? And then the communication consultant will come on board by documenting the different progress or part of these conversations to see the progress that has been made and also to take the conversation forward. The Minister of Gender, Youth and Persons with Disability in South Africa, they're still in negotiation on the format that they'll want the regional convening to take, and therefore more details will be shared shortly. I'll now welcome Helen to share the progress on the Victorian government.
Thanks, Valerie. I think my video is just disabled, but that's fine. I can just speak. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be joining you today. So I'm Helen. As Valerie said, I'm from the Victorian State Government. So I'm the focal for the Oceanic Pacific Regional Convening Partner, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. Based in the Office for Women in the state government. And I'd like to firstly acknowledge that I'm joining this meeting from the lands of the Bunurong people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I also wanted to thank the Women Deliver team just for arranging this second webinar so that those in our region could join and learn about how they can engage as part of the global dialogue. And I know that we've got some of our regional committee members joining as well on the call today. So just a quick shout out to our amazing regional committee members. So with this regional committee, we've been sort of working over the last few months since January to co-create our regional convening strategy. And our committee is made up of a diverse mix of incredible leaders from across Australia and the Pacific, and they represent a range of sectors and lived experience perspectives. As Valerie mentioned, the regional convening is one of the 3 elements of the global dialogue. And as part of our regional convening strategy for the Oceanic Pacific region, our regional committee will be hosting 2 in-person events, as Valerie had in the slide. So the first one will be in Nadi, Fiji, in mid-May. So the dates for that are the 11th and 12th of May, and immediately following the Pacific Feminist Forum, which is happening earlier in that week. And then our second in-person event will be in Melbourne, Australia in mid-June. But Valerie, we've just slightly adjusted the dates for that event. So it'll be happening on the 6th and 7th of June instead of the 5th and 6th, which I think we've previously advised. And we've got 2 sub-working groups with our committee currently deep in that co-design mode for the 2 events, because they are coming up very quickly. And we're also encouraging gender equality actors and advocates from across our region to run their own events during the global dialogue. So as part of that sort of other element that Valerie spoke to, which is the community events element. And I'll share in the chat our new website that we've just launched to host information about the Oceanic Pacific regional convening, and also our email address for anyone who's from the region and is keen to connect and learn more about what we're planning for our regional convening. Or if you're planning to organise your own event, we can talk about how we might be able to share the outcomes from your own events through the regional convening activities. And we're also really keen to connect with anyone who might be going to Kigali as well in the lead up, so we can make sure we've got sort of visibility of all the different activities that will be happening in Kigali, and be sort of promoting our regional perspectives. And just to end, we're really, really excited by the opportunity that the RCP role brings, and we're very excited along with our regional committee to bring the unique perspectives, priorities and grassroots lived experiences from our diverse region to Kigali, and to elevate the voices of women and girls from our region, and to share that on the global stage. But I'll pop now in the chat the website, and please head to the website to learn more about our wonderful committee and what we're planning for the regional convening. I'll throw it back to you, Valerie. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Helen, for the brief and also the plans that the Victorian government is having, are planning as we head to Kigali. Thank you so much for that.
Sorry, Valerie.
And then we'll now look at the second element of the global dialogue, which is the community event. As I've mentioned, these are the advocacy spaces whereby the community and activists come together to be able to just create their own event. And the format that this is taking, as much as it can take any format that the community deem fit to be able to connect with their respective audiences. You will be expected, if you're planning a community event, you'll be expected to share with us some of the details so that we're able to highlight it in the Global Dialogue webpage. And this is one of the commitments that Women Deliver has, that we will want to see more of the community events and the conversation taking place as we head to Kigali. Therefore, some of the details that we are requesting from the registration form of the community event is the name of the organizer, the name of the organization, the email address, what is the event all about, what is the schedule, that is in terms of the date and time, and if possible, can they include the time zone so that diverse people are able to know the exact time that the event will be taking place and they be able to join, the location of the event. If it's a physical event, also kindly share with us exactly where the event will be taking place, and if it's a virtual event, either a Zoom link or a Teams link, kindly share that with us. We'll also be interested to know what the event is all about, what are the objectives and what are you probably envision to achieve with it. So a short description of all the event will also be required. If you want to provide the description of the event in either French or Spanish to increase the audience and also the more people to come to the event, kindly do that. And then any additional resources that is relevant to the event. This could be either a policy paper or this could also be either a policy paper or any information that you deem fit that it will be important that the target audience it will be deemed that the target audience, it's important for them to have. And then lastly, we have the safeguarding clause. It's important for us to be able to create a space for engagement. This does not necessarily mean that we want to police the conversations that we are having, but it's also important for us to make sure that those spaces are safe for dialogue and also deliberation. And therefore, as part of the registration form, the organizer will be required to agree to the Global Dialogue Toolkit, which is officially out, and we're going to touch on that briefly, together with the safeguarding guidelines. The progress that we've made in terms of the community events so far is that we have more than 30 community events submission, and this is just from the official launch that happened on the 2nd of March. So there has been very, very good progress, but more interestingly is the diversity of the community events that we are currently receiving. We had envisioned to have the traditional form of events that is either in person and if it's virtual on Zoom or link or Teams. But what we are getting from young people from all over the world is that some of them are actually sharing with us the links to their spoken word, to their poems, to their performances that they're having within their respective communities that is touching on gender equality. So that is quite interesting and quite encouraging of the purpose of the community event, which is to take the format the activists and the organization deem fit that they'll be able to reach their target audience. Kindly share with us more of the community events that you're planning in your respective communities or as an individual, and we'll be happy to highlight those in the Global Dialogue webpage. Now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Trinley, who's going to introduce herself and also take us through the next slides.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tinley Atup, and I am focal for the Women Deliver 2023 virtual conference. So if you're unable to attend the in-person conference in Kigali, I hope most of you can, but if somehow you're unable to, make sure you register for the virtual conference as well, which will take place on the same days as the on-site conference. I'm joining you from Kathmandu, Nepal. It's a beautiful sunny morning here, and I welcome you again to this webinar. I will present some best practices to follow when organizing remote and in-person convenings, keeping in mind the Women Deliver principles and guidelines in ensuring accessibility to all. And I'm sure most of you are already following these best practices, but you could use this as a refresher or take something new from this webinar. So as you can see on the screen, these are logos of some of the most widely used digital platforms for social interactions and information sharing across the globe. Thanks to rapid advancements in technology in the recent years, we can very easily now hold large or small convenings virtually with participants joining in live from across the globe at the tip of your fingers. So taking advantage of the available technology, for the Global Dialogue 2, you can use these platforms if you want to hold virtual events. This is not an all-inclusive list, and depending on what is most feasible and accessible for the organizer and the audience, you can choose other platforms as well. For example, I know that where I am here in Nepal, most people are always using Viber for communication and information sharing. And I feel like, I mean, most of us are using Zoom webinars for sessions on different topics. And I somehow feel that we still haven't cracked the code on using these other platforms, which are actually more used by local populations across the globe. And there may be many reasons, but there is one reason that I can touch on towards the end of my presentation. So you have Zoom webinars, Microsoft Teams, Facebook events, Instagram Live, Twitter Spaces, WhatsApp. I forgot what the space is called, but for WhatsApp, also, I think it's called Community Space. So you can use any of these digital platforms for your virtual convenings as well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, there you go. So of course, the first thing for virtual events that we all want to keep in mind is choosing the right platform, keeping in mind our organizers and the audience, and especially the audience, because we want to make sure that that the webinar or the event is accessible in areas where bandwidth is low. We want to make sure that the platform is easy to use and accessible from smartphones. As we all know, most people have smartphones with them, even in remote areas from around the world. People today use smartphones. So we want to choose a platform that's accessible from smartphones and not just laptops. And if it's a web-based platform, make sure that it is compatible with all browsers, such as Safari, Firefox, Chrome, all browsers. And of course, we want to determine and define the objectives of the meeting or the event so that it's easier to decide who your participants, who your participants are going to be, what the topic, the agenda, methodology of the meeting, etc., are going to be. One thing to make your virtual events, one thing to keep in mind to ensure that your virtual events run smoothly is to assign 2 key roles, a moderator and a chat monitor. The moderator can serve as the coordinating figure who has an overview of the structure of the meeting, the role of each speaker and the contents to ensure the smooth flow of your session. And the chat monitor can help with answering live questions and keeping you engaged, just like how Samson is doing right now. So you also want to define modalities of participation and engagement of participants. You can use icebreakers, gamifications. You can use, of course, you can enable the Q&A session and the chat function. Depending on, again, the topic or the scale of your session, you may or may not want to enable the chat function, because it'll be a lot of work for the chat monitor also sometimes. It's really important to have a follow-up communication and distribution of contents. We want to send out thank you messages, post-event surveys to learn what worked well and what didn't, and areas of improvement. It's good to always share next steps and resolutions, and it is always best to communicate on this when the momentum is still high. One of the very important aspects of virtual convenings and in-person convenings is to ensure that the participants' privacy is protected. At the least for virtual meetings, inform your participants that the meeting is being recorded, and also ask the speakers for consent on sharing their presentation materials. Make sure that you have participants' consent for video recording and data collection. Next slide, please. So here we have accessibility. I'll go over two slides. The first one is accessibility for in-person events. And as Valerie mentioned, again, we have launched the Global Dialogue Toolkit. So there'll be more details on the toolkit on how to ensure accessibility for in-person events. So first, you want to consult with, again, these are best practices to follow if you have the resources and if it's feasible for you. Of course, depending on the scale, the budget of your organization, some of these elements may not be feasible for you to implement. But as best as possible, it is good to ensure that we are following these best practices. So we want to consult persons with disability or organizations of persons with disabilities, also called OPDs, to get recommendation on accessible meeting venue options. We want to ask if any participant need accessibility accommodation, and accordingly book sign language interpreters, captioners, and note takers. We want to, before the event, we want to conduct site visits of shortlisted venues, reserve seating for the deaf and hard of hearing participants, other participants with disabilities, and their personal assistants and sign language interpreters. I'm sorry, I'm reading off the list, but there is more information on the global toolkit as well. We want to ensure accessible transportation and lodging accommodation option, and that lodging accommodation options are closer to the meeting facility. And be mindful of sending invitations in an accessible format using Word file or PDF that has text-to-speech features. Next slide, please. And on this slide, we have some things to keep in mind specifically for virtual events to ensure that we are not creating a barrier to accessibility for persons with disability, especially for persons who are blind or have visual impairments, and also for deaf persons and those with hearing impairment. So first thing, you want to minimize flashing images and consider color contrast between foreground and background colors. You can find the best ratio for the contrast from online. The right contrast ratio ensures that people with moderately low vision can tell the colors apart and see your content on screen. We want to ensure adjustable text size, color, and that brightness is inbuilt in the system. We want to enable audio and video captions for deaf persons and persons with hearing impairment. Make sure that the platform you choose has clearly defined buttons to assist in finding the content and information. And last but not the least, we want to avoid excessive use of jargon. Again, depending on the nature of your session, you may or may not need to use heavy technical language from the international development sector, but if and when possible, I think it is always best to use a simple language so that more people can access your information. I recently read a very interesting article titled How Jargon Can Hurt the Poor. And it talked about how using jargon in your speech or presentation will actually make it difficult for people who are not from the international development space to understand the information that you are sharing. And this is especially important to keep in mind if you want people from rural communities and grassroots organizations to participate, especially from non-English speaking regions. So on the article, it quoted one phrase, and it's very interesting. So, for example, if I was a speaker at an event and there were young people, let's say from rural Nepal, participating and listening to me, and I said something like, gender empowering multi-sectoral capacity building facilitates knowledge sharing and engaging stakeholders in inclusive sustainability, I think it will be impossible for the participant to understand. So as much as possible, and especially keeping your audience in mind, I think it's best to try to speak in simple and clear language. And coming back to what I was talking about, how despite the amount of resources we have in the INGO sector, I feel like we still haven't cracked the code in taking full advantage of these digital platforms other than Zoom. And the language may be one of the main reasons. So just to keep that in mind. With that, I end my presentation, and I give the floor back to Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chinle, for that amazing presentation. Although from the jargon, you lost me at the multisectorial, so I can't remember what you said after that. But quite good to note the importance of not using jargon while you're communicating to the audience, and especially at the grassroots level. Now we move to the communication, marketing, and branding. Now we know what the global dialogue is all about, the three elements of the global dialogue, the platforms and the best practices of using the digital platforms, but how do we make sure that the events that we are creating gets to the target audience and we're able to reach many people as possible? So first is to partner with an influential guest speaker, and this is relative depending on the community where you are coming from, but also to take note that there are some people who come to specific events because of the people that will be in that particular event. Either they want to interact with them, either they've been following their work for a long period of time and they want to get the opportunity to network and also to get the motivation that they need. So it's important that it's important to partner with an influential guest speaker. This could be an area MP, it could be the local chiefs, it could be a church leader, depending on the context or the community where you're coming from. The second thing is to promote the event using their own social media channels, because you have already created a community within the media channels and you already have a following. So it's just important to be able to create the event using these channels because of the pre-existing community that you've already created. Saving the date and sending these is quite important as well, as it will make the audience know that this event is coming up and they should be able to schedule that in their calendars. The use of countdown to create buzz is also a very good marketing strategy. And as you're creating the buzz, you could also highlight who are the speakers to the event, what are the key takeaways, what are the fun activities that are going to take place in an event. Then the registration process needs to be very seamless, as most of people, once the registration process is technical and they're not able to go through it, tend to leave the registration midway. Therefore, it's important that the registration process be as easy as possible, and this you could test it out within your team members to just see how accessible is the registration process. And then the fifth thing is the promotion on social media platform. How do you promote this particular event in a social media platform? As we're heading to Kigali in July, and as we gain the momentum towards the global dialogue and also the conference, it's important, or it's also advisable to use the WD 2023 hashtag. This is going to give the event more leverage and also more visibility across all the channels, as this is the official hashtag that we are going to use for this year's conference. And lastly, it's also important that the audience know what are the benefits of attending your event. And this could be as simple as this person is coming, you'll be able to interact with them. There's either a book launch or a policy paper that is going to be launched at the event, or probably it's just going to be a networking and a safe space for the activists who are working in diverse community to be able to just come together and share their strides and also the challenges that they are facing in their respective fields. On to the next steps. We now know what the global My apologies about that. I'll have to disable my video. The power has just gone off. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. Now I'm going to explain what are the next steps with the global dialogue. First, I've already highlighted who our regional convening partners are, and there has been interest from the regional convening partners and also the people that want to head to Kigali, and also the people from different communities to be able to connect with the regional convening partners. Therefore, as an individual or as an organization, if you want to get connected to the regional convening partners, Helen has already highlighted how you can get in touch with them. But if you want to get in touch with the Asia Pacific Resource Center for Women, the city of Bogota, Arab Institute for Women at the Lebanese American University, or the South Africa RCP, kindly write to us and we'll be able to make that connection. Another way how we are going to move forward is through the community events. I've already explained what the community events is all about and also highlighted the registration link. We are looking forward to receiving the events that you have planned in your community. Kindly do share that with us. And the Global Dialogue Community Events Gallery is also an important aspect of this because we would want to highlight and also to share with the people that have not been able to make it to your event what and how we're going to connect this is through the pictures that you'll share with us through the community events gallery, together with a brief description of what the event was all about. We are looking forward to receive the photos as well, as that will be key highlights of what the event was all about. And then lastly, the overview of the after event. How many participants are you able to get to come to the event? Is there a key resolution or action points that you got from the event? What are the follow-up? Are you planning an event or are you planning a match? Are you planning either a follow-up event? Are you writing a policy paper? Are you planning a meetup? Kindly do share with us the resolution that come from these events that you're planning. And this is also available in the Global Dialogue Toolkit. So that marks the end of our presentation. We'll just open the floor now for the Q&A.
You can ask your questions by raising your hands and we can unmute you. Thank you, Trinley and Valerie, for the lovely presentations. You can also ask Helen. I can see she's still online, so if you have any questions for Helen too.
I can just quickly share something about virtual events and
Yes, please.
band. Yeah. So as you all saw just now, how Valerie during her live presentation suddenly froze, and she only came back up after she turned off her video. So this is one very good tip that you can give to users from low bandwidth areas, that if they're joining in and somehow it's slow, they can close their videos and other browsers, and it'll work better. It'll ease up the bandwidth.
Great, thank you. There's a question for you, Helen, from Bobby. It says, with the Melbourne 6-7 June event in person, will this be an open event invite process for the people to attend?
Thanks, Samson. Hi, Bobby. So we're still in the process of just determining what exactly the invite process will look like. So we'll be able to share more information via the website, and also, yeah, if you're interested in keeping updated, then just let us know through the email address on the website. Our venue does have a limited capacity, so we'll be looking at really I guess, some targeted invites to make sure we are providing opportunities to people who might not normally I guess, have the opportunity to attend such events, and really aligning to Women Delivers objectives around reframing who leads, creating space, etc. But yeah, Bobby, if you want to maybe reach out to us and we can make sure we keep you updated. But all the updates about the Melbourne event will be on the website as our planning progresses. Yes, and is it okay if I just answer Bobby's additional question?
Please.
Yes, and youth engagement completely. We're very, very keen to make a focus for our regional convening overall. So yes, if you've got ideas on organisations that we might be able to work with, or any potential speakers, then yes, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. I've helped to answer another question for you on behalf of you, Helen, on the chat. I've shared the link again on the chat. So
thanks, Samson.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Hearing none, that means everybody has understood, but we'll be sharing the video as promised, the recorded video as promised at the beginning, and also we'll share the presentations. Our contact details will be also available, and we are always happy to share any information that to answer any questions that you have. We'll be happy to assist. Yeah, I think with that we can close this webinar. Thank you everyone for joining. We hope to see you in Kigali from July 17th to the 20th. And if you're not able, we also have a fantastic virtual conference led by Turley, as she explained earlier. So you can join us also on a virtual conference where we'll have about 50 concurrent sessions and really some very exciting content that's coming up specifically only for the virtual conference. So it will be 2 conferences happening at the same time, virtual and in person. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Turley, for the presentations, and have a lovely day for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Samson. Thank you, Chinli.